Hey, Jon Malach here from NativeAds.com. How you doing?
Man, blessed, thankful, feeling abundance, and excited to reconnect with you, Paul.
Yeah, it's been so long. I appreciate you, taking the opportunity to come over and share your knowledge. I just want to, for those of you that are tuning in and watching the replay, I know most people watch the replay. I just want to introduce Jon here from NativeAds.com. He's basically he's probably my youngest mentor. He's mentored me back from when he was with Champions Way and he was helping build that company, and then he moved on to create a number of companies of his own as well. I just wanted to, if I'm not introducing everything about you, but I know currently right now you're running NativeAds.com, and it's been for a few years you've been doing this, and a lot of people don't know what native ads are. Could you maybe give a little spiel on what it is, maybe a basic 101?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for you listening along, this is not going to be a sales pitch for native advertising. I promise.
Oh,
We're going
for
to talk
sure.
about all kinds of stuff. But to define what native ads is, when you're reading an article and underneath the article on a website or in an app, you see recommended reading either beside that article or underneath that article. The easiest way to spot it is it'll say, you may also like or recommended for you. All of those are ads, but they're ads that are sending you to another article. And so the concept of a native ad is it's an ad that fits in, it fits the form, it fits the function of the rest of the environment. So if a tree is native to a forest, a wave is native to an ocean, why can't an ad be native to an editorial environment?
Mm-hmm.
The coolest example of the first native ads I'm aware of, it would be soap operas. If you look back in time, they always found a way to incorporate, laundry or washing dishes in soap operas. And the reason being is that the main advertisers were companies like Procter and Gamble. And so they got nicknamed soap operas because that's what funded them.
Yeah,
Kind of a cool little tidbit from back in the day. So that's what native ad
interesting.
is. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I've dabbled in it a bit myself and found that it is a different angle for sure. And rather than the Facebook and Google and everything else, that in that the experience on your mobile is going to be suggested content, and then according to that suggested content and your interests and everything, similar to how the Facebook algorithms and everything work, it's works similar to that, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
It does, and I like to try and create real world comparisons. So, Paul, I'm not fully aware of who your audience is, but if there's anyone who runs a membership-based business that follows you, um, you've been doing native ads every time you do a trial. That is a native ad. Like an introductory lesson is a native advertising because it feels like a real lesson, but it's an advertisement to sign up. And
Mm,
so what's funny is we, speak about algorithms like they're this new technology. Maybe not for some of you, but for most of us, it's a relatively newer term that we're understanding that, what I click on dictates what I'll see tomorrow.
mm-hmm.
And think about it from this point. In the real world, you come in, you're given this little waiver and you fill out, how did you hear of us? Do you
Mm,
train anywhere else? And it's almost like you're ticking boxes or clicking things. That's creating a human algorithm for when the person who's giving the introductory reads it, they're like, okay, I'm going to tailor my communication to this person because they have done martial arts before, or they
I
have
see.
done this activity before, or they haven't. So it's kind of interesting. We've been doing it all along. And now that the big tech platforms are copying human nature, we're now, amazed by it when really like the amazing things are happening internal to us every day.
Wow, that's an interesting analogy because we all use this term like it's the greatest thing, algorithm, and a lot of us really don't understand really what it is. But to hear this analogy and comparing it to business, it was actually based on human interaction, from what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
And just
it's like grabbing a small essence of someone's personality and trying to put it into technology. In
mm,
my opinion, an algorithm is almost like a human API. It's an interesting way to look at it.
wow, interesting. A human API that probably has many different options, I guess, based on what's
That's right.
what's given. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, if our number one strength of humans is our ability to adapt,
mhm.
then we're trying to train the computers to have that same strength,
I
right?
see. I see. And now with the native ads, like a lot of people, when I tell them about native ads, they're like, "Oh, what's that? What's native ads? What's that? What's that?" And I'm like, okay, well, whenever you're reading, you know, a piece of content online, you know, on your phone or whatever, MSN or whatever it is, you're going to see the little ads at the bottom, and you may notice that it's Taboola or native ads or this, that, whatever you may
Right.
see. And the difference between this type of advertising, it's not like a regular here in your face ad. It's more tailored, I guess, to the other main piece of content that you're reading. Is that what I'm understanding, or?
It's, you know, Paul, I'm really impressed by your understanding of the stuff. So the ads underneath an article that you see are generally targeted based on a couple different ways.
Okay.
One is called contextual targeting, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when the person, the marketer behind that ad, has either been assisted or knows how to target, you know, keywords or combinations of phrases. So, for example, if you had like an active lifestyle business that was trying to put together some type of staycation, you know, do this in your own backyard, it's going to be lots of fun.
Mm-hmm.
You may be looking for keywords that are positive keywords or negative. Positive being the article is kind of already talking about going out, so you would be looking for things like things to do this summer, or
I
summer
see.
activities, or outdoors, or excursions. Like that would be positive keyword targeting. On the flip side, there could be negative keyword targeting where you're like, you know what? I'd like to spice things up and be a recommended ad underneath an article that's talking about the opposite. So lockdowns,
Mm,
shutdowns, and those kinds of words that mean the opposite. So that's contextual targeting. Then you have like what we would call profile targeting, persona targeting, or demographic targeting, which is if the person meets these criteria, as ages X to Y, identify as this gender, or have this latitude and longitude coordinates, they're on a mobile, they're on a desktop, that type of thing. That's another way that you can target people. And then there's
amazing.
also, yeah, and then there's behavioral targeting, which is what have they read previously, right?
Okay.
So if they've been to this article or these websites, I want to talk to that person. You know, he was at Ford.com, he's looking for trucks, I want to target him with another ad for another type of vehicle, and so forth.
Interesting. And when you say behavior, are we also talking about purchase behavior? Is that
Yeah,
also something? Okay, that's good too.
yeah, yeah.
So it is good for e-com as well, not just lead generation, right? From what I'm understanding.
It's any kind of furtherance of an action, right? You know,
I see.
anytime you want someone to progress through a journey, some people call these funnels,
Yeah.
but each time someone is to take an action, whether it be to make a purchase, share their information, share the article with another person, or you might be priming them just to read the next time you produce content. Sometimes there's content that is all pre-framing, right? So
Okay.
you can just sort of create that suspense. Like they can tell something's coming, they're not sure what it is, but you're pumping out good stuff that's interesting to read, and maybe you're just getting them ready so that you retarget them, and they're going to be more likely to click that retargeted ad because they enjoyed the first experience.
I see. I see. And while we're on this, before I forget, when we talk about the number of interactions it takes to possibly create a sale on a native ads platform, is it different than Facebook and Instagram? Or is it similar principles like, you know, you want to touch them 6 times or 5 times, or, you know, impression wise? Do you have anything you can share on that that might help
Yeah,
our audience?
I absolutely. So when someone is on a social platform, what mood are they in? Good
Hmm.
luck. Who knows? How
Yeah,
can
who
you
knows?
possibly tell, right? You can use inflection-based targeting, like time-based. So if it is 11:45 to 12:30, we know they were probably hungry, right?
Okay.
If it is 3:30 to 4:30, we know they're probably getting a little bit stagnant. They're getting to that point in the day where they need to move, they need to do something, they need to have a change of pace. Um, we know that in the evening, you know, they're reflecting upon their day, they may be thinking about tomorrow. And so like that's, you know, social gives you that ability to target people based on who they've volunteered that they are, based on their interest points, their friendship, their social graph. You can learn a lot about them as an individual, but
Yeah.
as far as their current mood set, it's
Yeah.
tougher. What
Mm.
advertising off the social platforms gives you is an opportunity to have more specific venues or arenas that they're in. Let me give you an example. Let's take a person, let's just say they're 30 years old, okay? They are in a different mentality when they're on a site that discusses finance investing, dividends, passive income versus active income, than they are when they're on a sports site checking last night's score, or when they're
Makes
on
sense.
a site that's teaching them, life hacks, good recipes
Yeah.
that will put your superfoods together. And so when you want to speak to an individual, when they're at their most consumptive state for a specific product, it'd be good to know what venue they're in, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't want to talk about finance to the guy that's just trying to see, did the team lose or win last night?
Yeah.
At the same time, I might not be trying to sell that guy a new pair of shoes when he's doing his due diligence on a company. So you
Yeah.
got to understand that there is cross-pollination rules where it makes sense to do that. 345, someone's on a finance site, a well-placed liquor ad will do very well. I need to get out of the office and go have a beer. That kind of thing can work very well, but it all comes down to the individual. And if you can understand how human beings work, you can market effectively.
I see. So this is now bringing us back to the trial or the human interaction again. Like you're constantly bringing this up. I mean, when we think tech, we think it's very impersonal. It's very like closed doors. It's very binary. We think of all that, right? But
Yeah.
you seem to be talking about the complete opposite, and you're talking about what is, I don't want to use the term the end user, but what is the human being doing, right?
Yeah. I mean,
You
it
know, how are they
just goes to
feeling,
show.
right?
Yeah, like when people say, how do I make a better call to action? I just look at them funny and I go, well, what would get you to do something, right? Would you like to be encouraged? Would you like
Yeah,
to be challenged? Would you like to be asked a question? Would you, like to be
yeah,
prompted and told if you don't do it now, you never will? You've already read 30 articles about self-help. All 29 of them before didn't move you. Here you are. Is this one going to be another one? Like, there's so
yeah.
many
Good
different
point.
ways to approach that.
Yeah,
And it bothers me a little bit when we forget that you're just human talking to another human.
yeah.
The difference is technology lets us speak to many people, and
Okay.
technology lets us speak to them asynchronously, meaning I've gone to bed already, but because I wrote this ad and you're awake, you're reading what I have to say, right? And so we just
Wow.
have to understand it's asynchronous, it's one to many, but it is still a human to human interaction. You're not selling to a robot, so why use robotic
Wow.
mentality in formulating your campaign?
It's funny because this is reminding me of, back in 2004, 2005, times when you were at Champions Way, and just the same, you're bringing the same thing. Like it's the same idea. Like you were always about that, right? Like about the people. And so like now, when did you first decide to get involved in something like this? Because this was a big shift for you in a time in your life. Like, when did you first know that, first of all, like when you wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? Because what was your first business? When was your first feeling to do something for yourself? Like, what happened?
Oh man, I'll never forget it. Down to the minute, the smell in the room, everything. I was that kid that wanted to impress my dad. That was kind of like, he was a
Mm,
really big part of my life. He was very generous with his time. And so it was my objective to impress him and to show him I would do good by his investment of his time and energy into me.
mm.
Translated, I wanted to be a lawyer because he was a lawyer. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I was going to school for a commerce degree, which was the prerequisite to go to law school. And in my second year, I'll never forget, we were in a calculus class. And to just quickly simplify the story, I had challenged the professor to give me a real world example of the application of what we were learning. And she was very gracious and said there wasn't any. And I said, cool, like what's
Wow.
next? And she said,
Yeah,
well, what we're learning right now
yeah.
is an equation that's no longer used. And then you're going to learn its predecessor. And then you're going to, so like we were going back in time to learn about things that are not used. And so like,
Mm,
I just couldn't handle it. My
yeah,
everything in my gut told me I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. And so I
yeah.
thanked her so much and told her she would never see me again. And I came home and I asked my dad for his blessing to pursue knowledge I felt would be utilized immediately rather than to learn things that might be part of some form of,
Yeah. Just
curriculum, if you
following.
will.
Yeah, yeah,
Correct.
yeah. Wow.
Um, and so I'll never forget his words. He said, hey, I'm not sure what this looks like, but give her a shit. And I said, okay, if his blessing was simply work your rear off, and don't worry so much about what path you take, traditional or not.
Yeah.
I just felt like, okay, like I had the right balance of fear and motivation. I don't know about you, but I need to be scared to perform. I lather
Yeah.
myself up into a bit of a stress ball before I
Mm.
have to do anything that requires my best performance. Maybe that's not healthy, but that's just how I get going. And so when
Mm.
he gave me that statement of like, give her a shit, but at the same time, I don't know what you're doing, it was just the right balance of hopefully you know what you're doing, but go as hard as you can. And so
Wow.
that would have been right before I paired up with Mr. Dordar. We originally wanted to open a bunch of martial arts schools. That was the plan. And the
Wow.
question was posed, do you know what you're doing? No, I don't. Well, the best way to learn it would be to learn this software program because it has all the management fundamentals built into it. If you learn how it operates and all that, you'll be the best manager of all time. And so
Mm.
that was the idea. And then it just kind of was a boiling frog situation, Paul, because I didn't realize it, but Fareed had seen in me someone that could help him with the software business. And so
Yeah.
he didn't necessarily pronounce to me that his plan was to have me stay there, but that's what was
Yeah.
happening as we grew quickly. And
Yeah.
so, I sadly kind of saw my dream of operating schools with my brother as our lifestyle kind of fade away, but I was equally excited by the opportunity to try the corporate world out. And so
Yeah.
it was an accident. I can't say there was a day where I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but there
Yeah.
was a day where I said, I'm no longer going to be a college student. And so
I
maybe
see.
that was the same thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, you were building something great, right? Like massive, and the best times that I remember were when you were at Champions Way, like it was running the best, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. People can say whatever they want, but that's what I believe. And a lot of other owners that still remember you say the same. So, I thank you from all of them.
Oh, it was
And
great to connect with so many amazing people, every single
yeah,
person.
like you had us thinking about the martial art business in a different way, right? And the thing is, a lot of us didn't think of it in that way. We just thought, hey, let us open up this gym and let's just let's just teach and make money.
Mm-hmm.
But we had no
Mm-hmm.
idea about business at all, right? Like nothing at all until we met the likes of you, and you spent time with a lot of us. You really did. And that's the difference I see is why Champions Way grew so fast. It grew a lot when you were there. And I'm saying that right now.
Thank you.
And
It
it's the
was
truth.
it was a fantastic experience, and I remember
Yeah.
a lot of those conversations. It's a Sunday, you get that phone call, and you're like, "Is this guy really calling me?" And you just think like there's that moment in life where you're like, red or green, right? Blue or red pill, whatever,
Yeah.
and you hit it, and 5 minutes into the conversation, once you've gotten over that moment of realizing you're volunteering your time and you're going to be on the phone for a while, once you get past that initial kind of like discomfort
Yeah.
of sacrificing that time, you realize how important it was that you connected with that individual. There's something
Yeah.
spiritual to be said about being there for
Yeah.
someone in a time of need.
For sure.
And looking back on all those times, I could never change them. If you don't mind, I actually wouldn't mind kind of just digressing on that for a second, because I saw some of the questions you were kind enough to share with me that you thought we might cover today.
Yeah.
And Paul, one of them was something to the effect of like, what mindset, played in a role
Yeah.
in being successful. Man, this is the one takeaway I would hope I could give anybody, especially because I think a lot of the people that are in your audience, Paul, deal with this on a regular basis. So here goes.
Okay.
We're constantly, in my opinion, approached by people who may see that we have an ability to either inspire them, get them back on track, or volunteer a piece of information that they were looking for to help them along their journey.
Mm-hmm.
And when people come to you looking for help, two things happen simultaneously. One thing is we subconsciously profile what kind of help are they looking for, and are they actually going to implement it, and what's my recency bias on this person. The last time I offered them help or advice, did they take it and run with it, or did they just kind of consume it, do nothing, and now they're back with their next idea? So we kind of
Yeah.
do that little profiling, right?
For sure.
And then the second part is you do that internal audit on like, am I just constantly giving myself away here? Am I letting everybody just brain pick me? Am I being taken advantage of? Do people really care? Or are they just going to keep taking? Versus, am I abundant and this is my calling and my duty is to serve while I'm on this planet and I will serve everybody. I gotta say, I was unfortunately affected by people around me, family members, close friends, who would say like, man, like those people are just taking advantage of you. They call you, they ask you a question, they know that you're, a kind of
you're
person
always going to be there, and
and I had a lot of like self-limiting doubts and a lot of insecurities. I've always had imposter syndrome. I could set the world record for something and still feel like a fake. That's just built-in insecurities. And so I learned that I vibrate highest when I'm helping other people, because it's not me doing it, it's them. They're the heroes. They're the ones taking the risk, and all I am is maybe a sophisticated cheerleader at best. But I really liked that role of being a cheerleader. I really liked that role of encouraging people to do things that scare them or to take on things that they've been putting off. Like it just charges me up. And so what I wanted to share with anyone watching is that the moment that I decided to block out all feelings of this person's calling me just to pick my brain and take advantage of me, this person's calling to ask for things that have a value, both monetarily and in other currencies, but they're not going to want to pay for it. They're just going to expect I'm going to give it to them. As soon as I got rid of that thinking, like I'm talking about like any time of day you call me, I'm picking it up. And if I'm not with the kids or if I'm not with a client of my own, I'm going to just give you everything I can, to the point where it is a faucet you don't even want to drink anymore from. That's what changed it for me. Like I flipped it around. It's like, you want some help? Okay, let me grab the mic and really come at you. Let's
that's
build
amazing.
a business plan. Let's do everything on the spot. Let's Google. Man, maybe I'll make a call. Let me introduce you to this person, and overwhelm them with help. Like everything
and
changed.
not for anything, like not for any other reason. Like not that, oh, they're gonna give me something back. It's nothing like that.
None of that. Like that, the moment that you think that way is the moment you cut off this magical spiritual supply chain. The moment you start thinking about what am I gonna get, or how long is it gonna take for my next wish to manifest. Like as soon as you start trying to quantify it and make some form of invisible balance sheet between you and another individual, I think that's when you miss out on that universal energy that will really propel you to the next level. I was constantly giving myself away for free for many years, but I was doing it with a chip on my shoulder, and that was where I was cutting off that energetic flow. As soon as I decided I love to do this and I'll be abundant and I'm going to just never let myself feel drained, that's when everything changed, Paul. That's when all the money in the world showed up for me, all the business in the world showed up for me, opportunities that I thought would never be in front of me were there, guys I never thought I'd get to shake hands with, or now I'm calling me on my cell phone. It's insane. I don't believe it.
So amazing.
It's wild.
That is like, oh man, that's amazing, because I've also felt those same times in my life where everything's just pure. And from 1 minute me playing a video game and then ending up in Japan having that character across, it's magical.
It really is.
And like, I mean, I'm sure look at what you've done. It's amazing. And you always remain so humble. It's unbelievable. And you know what? Yet it's very attainable. Now, the thing is, how do you get rid of, and that's why I brought up the mindset, is because there's this whole, thing online, The Secret and Law of Attraction, and there's all this, and then there's this other side where all these sharks and all these successful people, hard work. You just got to do hard work. You just got to work hard, and you'll be successful. But you're not going to do it unless you work 15 to 18 hours a day, right? Well, I don't know, but I'm just not that person to work 18 hours a day. I want to enjoy my life. To me, it sounds like the success is the attitude you have, and no matter what number of dollars you have, you're still successful.
Yeah, no, I like that.
I don't know. I'm just wondering, is that where you're at? When did you let go of the numbers? How did you do that? Did you just as easy as what you said, making a decision, or did you have to work at it? Did you have to continuously? How can we do that?
I'll share with you as much as I can here in hopes that there can be some parts extrapolated that'll be helpful. What I can tell you is
Because you
that I
do work
can't.
hard. Sorry, I just want to interject. You do work hard.
Oh yeah, no. When I was working at Champions Way, the martial arts software company, the hours were vicious, and it was 6 days a week, and phone calls from the partner on the seventh day. So it was
Wow.
never turned off, right? I thought when I moved on to the marketing group that I joined in 2012 that maybe it would be different. Not at all. It was the same thing. I actually was so behind in my knowledge that I found myself sleeping in the office because it got to 3 a.m. I'm still reading Wikipedia trying to learn these acronyms, and it didn't make sense to go home.
Wow.
And
My
so
goodness.
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of just like, if you don't know how to do it every possible way, and then one of them will end up working. Like I was literally that guy that was pumping out so much output that I was the clock that would be right twice a week, even though I was broke, or twice a day, even though I was broken. Like something I did was going to work. That was my
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
Some people call it the bamboo tree, when you're constantly watering something nobody else can see, and then one day,
Yeah.
boom, after 5 years,
It
it sprouts
comes.
75
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really resonated for me. But what I can tell you is this. I wasn't necessarily focused on the law of attraction in a numerical sense. I did adopt the vision board philosophy from that book. I started to write the vision board, but what changed for me was when I wrote down who I was going to help, not what I was going to get. I started writing who I was going to be aligned with, and how I was going to help them. And then I started writing what was happiness to me, time with my kids, time with my dad, my family being in a tight rhythm where we understand when we're not communicating well and we address it quickly versus letting things grow out of proportion.
That's
And
good too.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, once I started focusing on a rhythm as an individual and who I was going to just dedicate myself to helping externally, it was like, I started using the word God. I was not necessarily a religious person. I was
Mm-hmm.
spiritual, but I didn't say God. I didn't say
Mm.
that word. And I would be doing a disservice to myself and anybody who does believe in God if I didn't mention that that was a major shift for me as well. When I
Mm.
started giving myself to, I'm not in control of everything. And I started, maybe that's just a lazy thing. Some people like to say it's up to a higher power. Therefore, I don't, if it doesn't happen for me, there's a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
true. Some people do that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
and I don't want to encourage that because like I
Yeah.
think that's kind of given up. But
Yeah.
it's somewhere between knowing what you want to do and you're going to give it your all,
Mm-hmm.
but understanding that the things that come along are meant to come along. You are given the challenges that you are able to handle.
Yeah.
I've
Makes
been thrown
sense.
a lot of crappy situations to deal with, and when I get a bunch of them in a row, I try to just call them an initiation. I just say,
Mm.
wait, I'm being initiated into a new club right now. There's no way that this
Yeah.
world would throw this much crap at me in a short
Wow.
period of time if it wasn't because there's something good that's about to happen. There's a
Yeah.
step I'm about to take. There's a new character I'm about to become. There's something new that's going to come out of this, and it's an
Yeah.
initiation that I have to get through.
Which, to your point, things always go wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, Jon Malach is successful now and he's just coasting and la la la, and I'm sure things like, right? I
Oh,
mean,
Paul, it was awful,
come
man.
on.
I flew to like 17 countries on the low. Like I called in sick to work once and flew to Tel Aviv without anyone knowing, to try
Wow.
and set up an additional source of income for myself. Like anything I
Jeez,
could
man.
do, I was
Yeah.
ready to do it. I was ready. I
Yeah.
was fully all in. And no, I was not rewarded until 9 years later. It took a long
Wow.
time.
Jeez,
But
man.
yeah, but when you make that attitude shift,
Yeah.
I think it's attitude plus hard work, Paul. I don't think
Okay.
it's working 18-hour days. I don't think that
Okay.
that's the answer. But there are periods of time where you do need to.
Yeah.
Um, you almost have to run your life like an event planner. I think that that's a good way to approach it and
Makes
understand
sense.
there's going to be times where it's going to be 1 to 2 weeks of working all day long to get something across the line and get it done. Does it need to be
Yeah.
like that all the time? No, there's times where you go, okay, like this is my slow season.
Yeah.
Reconnect with my family.
Yeah.
Lose that 10 pounds I gained eating unhealthy while I was trying to get things done,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Balance can't be achieved over a day or over 1 week. I think
Yeah.
balance is a yearly thing,
Yeah.
And if you look back at the year you just lived, and you dissect how much energy went into health, wealth, family, friends, and so forth, whatever,
Yeah.
as long as those buckets are evenly filled out, you're good. How you fill them up and when you fill them up, I don't think that that's as important.
That's great advice. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Now I'm gonna go back a bit to when you were a you're a lifelong martial artist, right?
Yes,
And you
sir.
also have been, used to compete, used to fight in the ring, used to do it all, right?
Yes, sir.
And how much of that, like, how did that correlate with your entrepreneurship or your mindset towards entrepreneurship? Can you share a little bit, like, can you identify anything from
Absolutely.
martial arts? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to focus on one aspect on this. So I was very, I was on that verge of being a guy who could mistakenly be trying to overprove himself and speaking in that regard. And
Yeah,
having that
easily.
martial arts
Yeah.
background of just shutting your mouth paid such dividends.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, memories is when I was interviewing for a consulting project. I'd been a nightclub DJ for 20 years, and this guy had said, "Yeah, I'm working on this new service. I got a bunch of pubs that are interested." And I was thinking to jump in. Oh, I know the whole, how that works, the liquor licenses and all that. I understand that. I could help you out. He was actually speaking about publishers, like digital
Oh,
publishers,
wow.
right? And it was like just one of those moments where you're so happy you shut your mouth and just continue to
Yeah.
listen. So I feel that competitors are the best listeners, and the thing I
Yeah.
love about competitors and martial artists is that they know that no one's going to kick the bag for them. They
Yeah.
know that they can't. There's certain things you can't delegate, and
Yeah.
the ability to understand when it's not a good time to delegate and not let that scare you, just get it done,
Yeah.
and to recognize opportunities to keep, unlike right now, to keep your mouth shut and listen and learn.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Yes, sir.
sense. So it helped you in in a lot of your interaction and stuff. But how about on your approach to, for example, well, I'm not going to say when a problem happens because I can understand how you would deal with it, but on the mindset of, like, for example, like, if you look at martial arts, it's kind of, it's a system. Each martial art has systems in it. Do you think any of that had any impact in the curriculum, let's say the curriculum system that you were taught or you were constructing, compared to a system in a business? Because systems are very important in businesses, if I'm not mistaken, right? And from what all the entrepreneurs and even myself, I know that systems are super important. And how much, how much did you correlate? Did you even correlate any of that? Did that help you to kind of engineer a little bit of your systems?
Yeah. So breaking it down, when you're working with products or services that are at a consumable price point, meaning the person who's going to buy them or consider buying them, this is something that's not going to make a large dent in their cash reserves, whether it be a business to business transaction for their small business or whether it be a personal decision to buy something. When the price point of an item is below that kind of comfort stress test, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
systems are highly critical. Recognizing ways, like the biggest thing I think I translated from martial arts is disguising repetition. No disrespect to any millennials out there, but they are wired differently. They came up during a different
Yeah,
time, and
for
they're
sure.
motivated highly differently. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I noticed in managing, largely millennial staff was that they could spot when something was repetitive, like in a second, and they became very averse to participating with the level of enthusiasm I needed to build a culture. And
Mm-hmm.
so, not too different than organizing like a little ninjas class, you really have to disguise the repetition so that they can build that muscle of how to speak to a customer. They can build that
Mm.
muscle of the job is done when it's done, not at 5:30. And those kinds of just, human algorithms, if you will,
Yeah,
they need training. Like people talk about training in AI. Well, come on, it's all relative, right?
yeah, makes
So
sense.
that was huge. When it came to large ticket items, like currently the price points for the services I provide, they started at 150 grand and they go up to 500 grand. And
Oh, wow.
so that's a different level of
Yeah,
discussion. And this is where martial arts principles still very much come into effect, but it's not systemized. You can't systemize having someone part with that much capital. That is a human thing. It's a very individual thing.
Yeah.
It has its own cycle. Yeah, there might be some commonalities here and there, but if you're trying to systemize that, in my opinion, you're trying to systemize something that has too many variables to
Yeah,
create
makes
constants
sense.
around. And so what comes into there is just understanding, human interaction. One of the best things I was ever taught was a lady, Anne out of Anne out of New York, Anne Balaban, and she told me she was my employee, and she taught me more than I taught her. And one of the lessons I'll never forget, and it's not new, but I want to say it, is people will only remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Wow,
Like,
that's important.
it is so true. Like,
How
it
you made
doesn't
them
matter.
feel. Wow.
Yeah, it does not matter how proficient your service was, how prompt and punctual you were,
Yeah.
how glossy your presentation was, how whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's no measurement that will ever trump feeling, and you can't measure feelings, right? But
Makes
good,
a lot of sense.
yeah. And so that was a big piece in making that step to the next level there for sure.
And now, okay, that's amazing. That's cool. And that's great advice for everyone. And when you're creating systems, you don't want to over systemize, if that's what you're saying, right? Like you want to still have
Yeah.
that. Is that is
Like
that is that what you're saying?
if you have your regular program, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
your core offering,
Yeah.
that is something that has frequently asked questions. Let's just say that if there can
Mm-hmm.
be an FAQ that is written for the product or service that you're selling,
Yeah.
then systemize the hell out of it.
Got it.
Because if you don't, you are the system, and
Yeah,
as long
makes
as the
sense.
system isn't running, you're going to be running, and
Yeah.
that's
Mm,
fun and all, but it gets old quick.
makes
I have
sense.
absolutely no issue with jumping in and rolling up the sleeves from time to time to just make sure the temperature of the system is the right temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you get trapped in it, you're going to have to apologize to your children one day when they ask, like, Dad, how come you were never there? And that's something that I think all of us fear is the respect of our grown-up children, and we know that day is coming where you kind of get your report card. And so I'm working backwards from that day every day, trying to think like, am I the system or is the system the system?
And you
Um,
know what? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
oh, the last thing I was going to say is just, but when you're offering something that is more premium,
Yeah.
it's reserved for a specific demographic of your customer base.
Mm-hmm.
Ditch the systems, man. Ditch them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Personal attention, making people feel a certain way,
Yeah.
paying attention to their cues. Those are
Mm,
things that can't be automated. You can automate knowing when you need to have those conversations and not
mm-hmm.
missing those opportunities. But the actual delivery is not something that can necessarily be automated.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Wow. Yeah. No, I was interjecting there because I was going to ask you this question next. You have, two kids. You're married. You're happily married, and you've got everything. You've got a full family. How do you balance you know the systems are to help you balance your time. How did that change? Because when you became a father, I guess there was different demands, right? And how did that change? How did that impact your business?
Wow, that's a good question. This is going to definitely point to how fantastic a partner I have.
Mm,
One of the things that, and this isn't meant like you can't evaluate relationships or people, so I don't mean to do that. And I don't mean to generalize because I know there's a lot of boss ladies out there that they're the one coming home late.
sure, sure,
Um,
of
but
course.
like the biggest thing that was helpful for me was knowing that if I was still at the office at 10 p.m. and I wrote late night, probably won't be there until you're asleep, I would get a text message back in verbatim, go honey, go, with an exclamation mark, like just
Wow, that's
cheering me on.
amazing.
Like, there
Yeah,
was such a trust there
that's
that what I
amazing.
was working on was important and meaningful. And there was nothing more motivating, not the cheering, but the trust that what I was doing was worthy of the time and worthy of the time that was supposed to be for her.
Yeah,
And that's me not helping out around the house as much and not helping her out with things. So that was huge. When
yeah.
the kids showed up, That's when I recognized it was time to end that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't request it, but I knew if that dynamic didn't end, she was going to be stretched to a point of discomfort, and eventually that would be,
Yeah, for sure.
irreparable damage when someone gets burnt out.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like being abused, and you can get triggered years later of remembering what it felt like to be in that world. And so
Yeah.
you might avoid a bunch of things that are good for you just because they seem similar to that mentality.
Yeah.
And so, Paul, man, 6 to 8 p.m., that's all I can tell anyone out there is that if you can find a way to cut shit off from
Okay.
6 to 8 p.m., if you can,
Yeah.
um, that's a really good period of time for me. If you have a job that doesn't permit the evenings,
Yeah.
then it's like that 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning,
Yeah.
like give your
That's
family
awesome.
that, yeah, give your family that 2 hour window where
Okay.
this is number two. And I mean, second is
Okay.
not close. Like you're on the phone, kid says something. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in my 7 to 9 right now. Like, hey, what's up, man? Tell me what's going on. Like they need to
Yeah.
see you
Yeah.
push shit aside. And you
Yeah.
almost need to
Yeah.
be dramatic in doing it because that's what
Yeah.
reminds them that they are important. And if affection from dad is a currency that they recognize,
Yeah.
the visuals are important.
It's very important what you're saying. And now the thing is, like, I remember times, where, we've got so many gyms running, we've got this going on. Your mind, like you gotta shut it off. Like, even if you put the phone away, sometimes you're there, but you're not there.
All the time you're not there. You're
You
always,
see what I
as soon as
mean?
you put the phone down, you get that insecure feeling of what were all the things I forgot to put in my calendar? Who were all the people I
Yeah.
forgot to get back? And
Yeah.
you start to, you go into that spin cycle. Um,
Exactly.
the only way I've been able to get out of that, and
It's
I'm
hard.
still, it's
Yeah.
still definitely a 50-50 conversion for me to get out of it. But
Yeah.
what really hits me the hardest, I don't know about you, is right when you're going to bed. I always kind of reflect on the fact that it's like, oh my God, I shoved my kids aside again. Like
Yeah.
what was he, I don't even remember what he was trying to tell me, but it
What
was
was he
something that
telling
was
you?
important
Yeah.
of him to come forward and
Yeah.
speak up and say, hey, dad. And I don't even
Yeah.
know what was the end of that sentence because I did the whole, right? And
Yeah.
so you try to hang on to those moments, write it down on your hand, something that
Yeah.
reminds you, you can't do anything about the past, but you can recommit as a parent. Like any
That's
day of the
it.
week, you can
Yeah.
recommit. You can recommit and say, I haven't trained the people around me right now to understand that I need to recommit, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to let my
Exactly.
actions dictate it. So recommitting and just remembering like how
Yeah.
painful it was the last time you realized you shut out your family or you weren't
Oh,
paying
very
attention.
painful. Yeah.
It's like when you're about to take a bite of a
Yeah.
chocolate bar,
Yeah.
you might put it down if you remember how guilty you felt the last time you broke your diet. It's like, wait, okay, let
Yeah.
me put it down, right? It's like, that was a close one. And so I find myself doing that with the kids. It's like the text message comes in, bing bong, and you're just like,
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
feel
No,
that
don't
pain
touch it.
tonight. I'm
Yeah.
here with you, just
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah.
No, that's amazing. And it takes work. It takes work and it helps you grow as a person. And as you mentioned, it's never too late. Like any entrepreneur seeing this, like block that time off, like John says, because for me now my kids are in their teens and I look back at those times and I'm like, I did spend time with them, but there's times where I was spending time with them, quote unquote, but I wasn't really with them. And you know what, I'll tell you, there's people out there that are not like John and I and happily married. Maybe they are happily separated. That's fine.
Yeah,
But the point
absolutely.
is that I have friends that they have separated, but a friend of mine, he has more quality time with his daughter than a lot of married people that I know. A lot, like undivided time, like
Yeah, no, I
amazing.
have to give a shout out to one of my good friends, Jonathan Grandpierre. Um, his Instagram stories with his son are like the template of how to be a dad. Like he's
Wow.
taking him on nature walks. He's doing all these things
Yeah,
with him, feeding
that's
ducks, like all these
exactly.
amazing things. I'm like, man,
Yeah,
you're like a Hallmark card every Instagram
pretty
story.
much.
How are you
Yeah,
doing it? And he said, well,
yeah,
I only get, a couple days with them, so I know how to concentrate them. And it's kind of like
yeah,
when you're on vacation. Have you ever noticed when you're on summer holidays, like as if we put the laptop away, of course it comes along. I'm a freak. I bring a second monitor and set it up. So I've got my two stations and all that. But one thing I've noticed is I'm able to get everything done in 2 hours. Like that period
yeah.
of time before the
Same
family
here.
wakes up, you
Yeah,
crush work. You get your
yeah.
output's insane, right?
That's it. Yeah,
How come we can't apply that to our family? We
yeah.
can. If you know you're
Yeah, we
only getting
can.
2 hours with them a day,
Yeah,
it's a muscle and a habit that we train from going through the transition of being there to
yeah,
being present. And you
yeah,
learn to be present, and you start to find, common topics with your kids that can help
yes.
you anchor points into a conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I started gaming this game just to get more things to talk about with them, right? And
Fortnite changed my life, man.
yeah,
Fortnite got me my street cred with my kids. It's like such a
for me
big
it's
part
League
of
of
it.
Legends, but
Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun stuff.
it
Um,
is.
that's
And you,
amazing.
you
And
you learn their language, and you learn their currency and
yeah,
their value system, and just knowing a
yeah,
few of the gaming, lingo, can
yeah.
really help you connect with them.
And John, it's not the money they're gonna remember. They're not gonna remember that. It's not the things,
No,
right? What do
it's
they talk about? They talk about the times we had together, right? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we said, earlier, people don't remember anything beyond how you made them feel.
There
And,
we go. Back to that again.
specifically, if you can make someone feel empowered, or if you can make them feel little, the
Yeah.
positive and the negative, those are the feelings that never go away. I'm sure anyone watching this can remember a time where someone made them feel small and that motivated them to change. And they almost put that person as that individual antagonist, that kind of thing that was there that they're always driving them. And then there's the flip side, that moment where
Yeah.
someone said, no, actually, I'm going to shock you and I'm going to tell you something. I think you can do this. As a matter of fact, I would bet my house on you. I know you
Yeah.
can do it. I bet
Yeah.
everything on you. And you're like, you do? And then
Yeah.
later on, you start to see some progression. You're like, he does. I
Yeah.
can.
Because you
Holy
don't even
shit.
believe it. You're like, what? Really?
Yeah. No, I gotta be honest, when I was doing early consulting, the imposter syndrome was like at peak, peak, peak. Like people be like, man, I did what you said and it worked. I'm like, fuck, it did? Like I was
Yeah,
shocked.
it
I knew
did.
it would work, but I was still
Yeah.
shocked that the delivery was there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, good stuff on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And I think as an entrepreneur, everyone needs to realize like, your family is important. Your friends are important. Like, it's not only about justifying, hey, little Tommy, I'm doing this for you. I'm spending time away from you to make this business for you. That's just justification. I've done that before.
Yeah, I try to equate it to like they're like business is working out, right? Business is like going to the gym. Your
Yeah.
family is like your ankles and your shoulders. They're those things
Uh,
you don't think
yeah.
about, but if you injure one of them, you
Yeah.
can't go to the gym anymore.
You
You
can't go
can't
to
do
the
half the
gym.
things you wanted to do. If you are,
Yeah.
if you get, I've gotten this call. If I get a call and it's like, hey, your son was kicking somebody at recess today, and now you realize when you go home, everything's got to be put aside. We have to
Yeah.
have a serious discussion. We have to
Yeah.
make sure that he internalizes this lesson. We have to make sure that this behavior doesn't perpetuate. Well, it takes you off your game for the entire evening. Now, maybe that
Yeah.
is meant to happen. Maybe that's your opportunity to reconnect with the child. But when it happens in your marriage or in your relationship or in friendships, you start to realize that the little bit of neglect can result in a massive injury in that relationship that now
Mm.
prevents you from being able to even mentally be present at this thing we call work, let alone put forth your best efforts. And so yeah, I try to look at it like stretching or mobility training. Like there's the yin and the yang, right? We can go to the gym and give our all, but if you're not bringing some of that chi back in and internalizing it, then
Yeah.
shit, it can be really painful.
So, like we maybe don't look at this very often, John, but I guess being an entrepreneur um, does affect the way we run our family, not run it, but how we interact with our family. Do you tend to systemize at home? Do you tend to, you know,
Oh,
try to?
I don't know about you, but I definitely like you have that perspective, right? Like
Mhm.
how some of those movies like Goodwill, not Goodwill Hunting, like Born Identity or whatever. The
Yeah,
first,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
there's a part in the movie where he says,
I
I
know what
can't
you're
help
talking
it.
about.
When I walk in a
Yeah,
room, I look around, I know who's left-handed, I see the
yeah,
exit doors, I count this, that, and they kind of have this perspective where they just scan a room like a weapon.
yeah,
Entrepreneurs are similar. When you walk in your business, you're constantly scanning for
yeah.
exception, meaning
Yes,
really
yes,
good
very
things or
true.
really bad things, right? What's going well, what's going wrong. Nothing in the middle matters. It's
Yeah,
always what fires do I have to put out and what carrots do I get to eat, right? Oh, sales are up, great. Retention's down, shit. All right, all that. Um, I think that we walk into our homes the same way. We kind of
Yeah.
do that quick scan over. It's like,
Quick
dad's
audit,
home
right?
and he's putting
Yeah.
his stuff down, but we in our head are right away evaluating, okay,
Yeah.
where am I going to have to put the most energy?
Yes.
How are we
Yeah.
doing? How is the
Yeah.
health of the family household? And so I definitely think that there is that role, but I would imagine that employee mentality also can support that capacity, because as an employee, whether you're junior or you're senior, you also are aware of your environment, but you might not be used to managing other people and being responsible for their feelings, which I think is something that is a gift as an entrepreneur, is that you recognize very early that each person on your team is an emotional asset, meaning when they feel good, they are worth a lot. When they feel like shit, they're a liability to you.
That's
And
right.
so once you recognize that each one of those assets is worth a lot more when the emotions are good, I think that starts to become a lifelong habit, and you do implement it into your family, sometimes to the point where, the wife is going to be like, hey, like, stop the management thing for a second. That's your
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always hear that. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so true. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. And okay, I know I've taken a lot of your time. I just want one more question, if you don't mind.
Please, please.
So we've got nativeads.com, and that's that's an amazing business that you have running, helping a lot of businesses. But now there's also, is there any other ventures that you're working on, or is there any goals that you have for the future for Native Ads or for yourself? Is there anything that you want to share?
Um,
Because I
I mean,
think you were working on something in the gaming realm. Am I not
yeah, that's
mistaken?
right. That's
Right?
right. So Native Ads is like my home base, right?
Okay.
We're a combination of an ad platform. So our competitors would be Taboola, Outbrain. These are $4 billion market cap companies. So they're big
Wow.
competitors to have. And so in order to insulate ourselves from being commoditized and acquired or taken out, so to speak, at a lower value than we feel we're worth, we erected a professional services arm, which is basically a creative agency.
Okay.
And it prioritizes companies in the capital markets that are either going public or have just recently gone public, to assist them in communicating their message to investors at a mass
Hmm.
audience. What that has done for me is given me this amazing like bartender role in the world of business, where we kind of get to see a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And you start to see trends, you start to see common denominators of what makes a company successful or not successful. And then, what I used that to do was find something I thought would be fun. I love esports. I think video games are a great way to connect with people. I think
Yeah.
video games are a safe way to learn some lessons that life can teach you physically that might not be as safe.
Yes.
And
True.
yes, there's a lot of bad aspects to video games, but those are obvious. I like to focus on the part that's less obvious, which is video games are the social network your children are on, right? They're not
Mm,
on Instagram and Snapchat if they're under the age of 10. They're
that
on
makes
Roblox,
sense.
right? They're
Mm,
on Fortnite. And they communicate over those platforms, and they learn project management, leadership, affection, empathy, all those things, right?
mm-hmm.
Disappointment, taking risks, all that stuff. And so I wanted to be cool to my kids. So we started a company called Good Gamer.
Okay.
Website goodgamer.gg, and GG stands for good game. So
Okay.
it's a really cool project. I like to stay in tech, so we launched a website, cryptocurrencynews.com, and we are doing a couple projects inside decentralized finance, also known as DeFi, as well as non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which is kind of a bit of a hype train right now because it's misinterpreted, but I think it's going to be a dynamic that's here to stay, the concept of owning digital IP in one of ones or one of few. What I'm trying to do, Paul, though, in general, though, is like I'm just trying to do things that make me feel alive. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to balance, 1 out of 3 things should scare the shit out of me. Anytime I've done something that scares me, it's an indirect path to growth, just because you know that it's going to require you to change in some capacity. But right now, it's about finding ways to shine sunshine on anybody that needs it. Like this current state of the world, the current negativity, the current partisan narratives. I have fallen victim to the anger and the energy that can flow through you when you observe that behavior.
Mm,
And I want to put an end to it by just trying to love everybody. And so
that's amazing.
if I can put that into business, then I'm doing that. If there's an opportunity for me to be a part of a project that makes people feel good or reminds them of their strength and their abundance, then I want nothing but 100% involvement in that. So that's kind of the
That's
goal.
amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll pull it off, but I'm looking for that
I think you will.
that type of business, whether it's promoting health or spirituality. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm just calling for that universal calling. I'm ready to serve when
that's
the time
amazing.
comes.
Yeah, and for those of you out there, even myself, I was thinking, I always get an idea. Oh, here's a new idea. Here's a new idea, and that used to distract me from my goals and what I have in front of me, and sometimes dismissing the treasure that I have and the opportunity I have. But if what I did was I for myself personally is I started to focus on the people in
Mhm.
front of you, right? Like, don't dismiss that you have a human in front of you, and if you have a meeting with that person to review something that they did wrong, or something they lacked on a task, or whatever it is they didn't deliver, you know not just give them positive reinforcement, but really, how you said, give them that feeling that you're there for them, that you
Yeah,
really want the best for them. you
yeah,
know if it's
yeah,
15 minutes you have with this intern, walk away saying, them saying that, wow, this guy or this lady really cares about me, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
And
after, guess what? Selfishly, you feel good.
you
And
do.
now you're enjoying your day. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter whether they leave you, they go on, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like someone came to your house, they leave on a full stomach, right? They feel
yeah.
that, you know?
It's trying to get as many tops spinning as you can.
Yeah,
Like that's not the right visual, but people are not tops. But like think of them as like batteries, and it's like if
yeah,
you can give them, if you can be a wireless charger, so when they're
yeah,
around you, they feel that ding, ding, like it's starting to put back
yeah,
into them.
yeah,
Um, that to me is the way to charge yourself. Like to
yeah,
become that sort of Iron Man character that has that generator in the chest
yeah,
that never runs out of energy.
yeah.
The way to charge that battery is charging other people.
Because then you
And
don't feel
so
these, the 18-hour days and 20. You
you
don't feel
don't,
that, right?
you don't look back on the day as units of time. You look
Yeah,
back on the day as massive inflection moments in
yeah,
people's lives that you got to be a
exactly.
part of.
It's
Right? I
amazing.
don't look at it like, oh, I started at 5 a.m. this morning. I look at it and I go, I got to speak to a guy in Europe. We had an
Yeah,
amazing connection.
yeah,
Blah 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 blah. At lunchtime, I got to speak to so and so, and in the evening, I got to help out a friend. Right?
that's
What a
amazing.
fulfilling, abundant day. And you got
All
to
in
look
one
at it
day. Yeah,
that way.
that's awesome, John. Thank you. I know I've taken way more than,
No,
your
thank you
busy
for the
schedule.
opportunity.
I
Yeah,
really appreciate the time, and hopefully, maybe 6 months or a year down the road, we can do it again and see where you're at. That would be really nice.
it would
Um,
absolutely be my pleasure to keep connecting with you, Paul. One of the questions you were going to ask me at one point was who is my mentor, and I was actually
oh
going to
yeah,
say, yeah.
sorry.
And the funny thing is, I don't really have an answer to that other than probably a few people. One guy I want to shout out quickly is my he used to work alongside me, Saeed Ashrafinia. He
Saeed,
taught
yes, I
Yeah,
know
he
him.
taught me the importance of recognizing people and the individual in every discussion. Always kind of said, I think, he's the kind of guy that would appreciate it more if you talked like this. I was like, oh wow, like such a good assessment. But also yourself. You had some fantastic success training professional fighters, K1 fighters, world names, guys that are legends, and you still had time for me,
Oh,
right?
come on, silly to
No,
me.
no, 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 no. I went to this conference and we didn't connect in person, but I still remember it. This was in 2002. So
Yeah.
this is literally 20 years ago. And I hadn't met you yet, and you hadn't met me. And you took the time to come by our little booth every day and leave a note like, hey, came by to see you. Sorry we missed each other or whatever. And then I'd
Oh, you
won a
remember
fight.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, of course I
Was it the
remember that.
Bellagio, I think, wasn't it?
The guy that was training Gary Goodridge left a note for me.
Oh,
That
come
was
on.
like, oh my,
That's
no, I have the note still at home in a memory box. I
what?
still have it. Yeah, yeah. And I remember I'd won a fight by spinning hook kick, and I was on top of the world because I'd done a kick and knocked a guy out. And you're like, that's
I
great, man.
remember.
Like, enjoy that and embellish that
Yeah.
memory and hold on to it. But you got to get back in there and train harder now, because now you've set a bar for yourself, and you got to
Yeah.
jump over your own standard. And it was such a cool lesson that you had taught me. I can't do it justice today. So I wanted to make sure that I
Oh,
made sure
come
I
on.
told you that you were a great mentor and
Come on. Seriously.
created a
Thank you.
lot of
I
confidence. So
appreciate it.
thank you. No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Paul, for letting me be a part of your day today. And,
Oh, come on.
nothing but love to everybody who gets a chance to watch this if they do.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it, and I always value your friendship. Um, all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
good luck to you and your beautiful family, all your friends, your partners, and everything.
All right. Until next time, my friend.
All right. Take care, John. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.